I would like to say welcome to Natalia. And you've already kind of introduced yourself. And Natalia has been really, really helpful in the community as well. Basically, without her, we couldn't have organized the first one, without which we couldn't have organized the second one. So thank you very much. And we're very happy to have you here. And she's going to tell us how to get a job.
Thank you so much for this introduction. And indeed, I will talk about jobs today. Let me learn how this works. Okay, so first of all, I would like to ask you a few questions and discuss this particular topic. So, a lot of researchers kind of have to change the career track at some point in their career because, as we all know, academic system is hierarchical, so there are not enough seats for all of us to become PI. So there is some natural force, like forcing some of us to look for other careers at some point during our professional lives. And approximately 6 out of 7 PhDs have to find another career path at some point. So people change careers from science to from academia to industry for multiple different reasons. And I would like to first start from discussing which of these reasons are good reasons that lead to happy professional lives, and which one of them might actually lead to disappointments. So first of all, let me ask you this. So let's imagine that you're not really happy with the quality of teamwork at your workplace. So you feel like you're isolated in your project and you don't feel supported. You would like to have some better quality teamwork around you. Do you think this is a good reason to find a job in industry, or this is not a really good reason? So who thinks this is a good reason? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, who thinks this is not a good reason? Okay, and who doesn't have an opinion here? Okay, like 1/3. All right. So I can tell you my personal opinion, but you might have a different one. I just tell you what I think and why I think it, but this is debatable, of course. So I think that actually I would say yes to this question, because academia has some structural problem, which is that at the end of the day, it's all about your CV. So even if you work in a team, different team members have their separate private goals. And at the end of the day, you will be judged and you will be assessed for what is your output from the project. So even if you work in a team, you might have different goals. And if you go work for a startup, for instance, the whole startup, like the survival of the whole startup depends on your common goal. So your common goal is to develop a better product than a competition and win the market. So structurally, companies usually have much more better composed teams because they have common goals. So there is no structural problem like this. This is a generalization, of course, but generally, most people who come, especially from academia, to change their careers to startups, many of them report that they are actually very happy with the teamwork, and this is the first time ever that they really feel like working in a real team. So this comes over and over. Like I interviewed a lot of people who changed careers to industry, and this is one of the most common opinions. Okay, next. So let's imagine that you don't really enjoy politics in academia. So you don't like the way the positions are given away, and you don't like these under-the-table businesses. So you would like to change your career into industry. So is this a good reason? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, you have to do it this way because I don't see you. Okay, who thinks this is not a good reason or not good enough? Okay, like a few people. Okay, and who doesn't have an opinion? Okay, so I can tell you what my opinion is. My opinion is This is not a good enough reason. And the reason is because politics is everywhere. So if you go into corporation, you can all of a sudden find out that people back up each other even more sometimes than in academia. There are some circles of mutual interest, and positions are also given away sometimes, not the way it should be. And if you go work in some other areas, like if you set your own company, like there's always this networking, and there are always circles of mutual interest, and you cannot really get away from that, because everywhere you have the human factor, like that is strong, that you will have politics to a certain extent. And it's not always that the best product wins the market. It's not always that the most competent person becomes the boss. Like it doesn't always work this way. So politics will be everywhere, and in private companies sometimes even to a larger extent than in academia. So sometimes people who are completely incompetent get into managemental positions just because competences don't matter that much as in academia actually. So this might be disappointing. Okay, next. So you would like to have peace and quiet. You don't really enjoy this fast academic life. So you would like to have something more secure, more peaceful. So do you think it's a good reason? Do you think it's a wrong reason? Wrong reason. Okay, that's most of you. And who doesn't have an opinion? Few people. Yeah, I also think that it's actually a wrong reason, because in most, honestly speaking, like in private sector, like the pace is often even faster actually. So there are more like little deliverables, and there are often deadlines that are on a weekly basis. So there are actually more small deadlines, and the pace is usually faster than academia. So if you think academia is too fast for you, well, it could be worse actually. Next.
Yeah, from a startup perspective, because I think that's kind of your scene. You always don't work for the government, slow, I can tell.
Well, this is it is and it's not, because also you have a lot of meetings. You have to run from one meeting to another. Like people who work for big or governmental organizations, they usually have their schedule full with meetings, and it's very hectic during the day. That's often what they report. So deadline is one thing, and the lifestyle is a second thing. So it's actually, academia is an uncommon place where you can walk in anytime you want and leave anytime you want, and there is no dress code, there are no official working hours, and usually it's more hectic than that. So it's a really peaceful place when you think about it. Okay, so when you feel like this job just became your day job from 9 to 5, and you don't really feel like you were so enthusiastic and passionate anymore about what you're doing. It just became just a job for you. And so do you think in that case it's good to search for something outside academia? Who thinks it's a good reason? Okay, most of you. Who thinks it's a bad reason? One person, two people, three people. Okay, who doesn't know? Yeah. Okay. So I also think this is a good reason, because I mean, science is for really, you have to be in love with what you're doing, because otherwise it's just really hard job, and a lot of work, a lot of energy to put, and a lot of uncertainty to take. So if you just lost passion at some point, then there are other jobs that would give you better like security, better working benefits, and maybe you might find your passion, like regain your passion somewhere else. So this is usually a good reason. And you're not happy with your salary in academia. You would like to have something better paid. What do you think? Who thinks it's a good reason to search for something else? Really? And who thinks it's not? Okay, a few people. And who doesn't know? Okay. Well, actually, personally, I disagree with most of you, because I think, salaries in academia, well, they are not astronomical, but they are decent, at least in like first world countries. If this is the only reason, like this is your main reason why you want to switch to industry, you might be also a bit disappointed, because sometimes to get to these like top positions, first you have to go through traineeship, and it's very often the case that PhDs have to first take a dip with their earnings when they change to industry before they actually get the really good salaries, and also there is an inflation of lifestyle, so it's often the case that you just you tend to spend your whole salary, and your salary is growing when you are pursuing academic career, but you still spend it all because you just, you move to a bigger apartment, you buy more expensive stuff, and in fact you could save a lot, but you kind of suffer from this tendency, and if you get a better paid job, you would also spend everything, because you just a lot of people have problem with saving money. That's yeah, if you take care of your savings, you should not have a problem with living like very decent lifestyle in academia, at least in developed countries like the Netherlands. So I think if that's your only reason, I think you might be disappointed actually. What if you had a personal conflict with your supervisor and you feel burnt out and you feel, okay, I want to do something completely different? Is that a good reason? Who thinks it's a good reason? Okay, a few people. Who thinks it's not a good reason? Yeah, 1/3. And who doesn't have an opinion? Okay. So I personally think that it's not a good enough reason, because a lot of PIs who are now successful PIs, they have at some point personal conflicts with their supervisor, especially if you have like some leadership skills and your supervisor also, and sometimes two strong personalities clash. And the fact that you have a clash with your supervisor doesn't mean that you would not find a really good supportive person somewhere else who actually find you great, like the same personality traits that one person finds a problem, the other person finds it's actually great, and that means that you have a bright personality and leadership skills, and you can reach far. So the fact that one person assessed you in a wrong way doesn't mean that you will not find a more welcoming environment somewhere else. So if that was, is that the main reason, I would not be like, I would say this is not a good enough reason to actually leave academia. If you still have passion for what you're doing, I think it's good to give yourself another chance before you take that decision. Okay, and let's say that you designed something that was very creative in your recent project, and there is an investor who wants to invest in you and wants to commercialize your research into a product, and wants you to be a CEO of a startup to actually build up this idea. So what would you think? Like, what would you do? Would you take a punt and go for it, or would you rather stay? So who thinks it's a good reason to leave academia? A few people. Okay, and who thinks it's not a good reason? Okay, and who doesn't have an opinion? Okay, yeah, this is a bit abstract situation, right? Not many people have that story, but like I would say that it's usually a good idea to try, because this doesn't happen to everyone, and doesn't happen often, and it's usually like one time opportunity to see if you would maybe be another Elon Musk or not, and if you after a year or two you kind of flop the company, usually academia is still there and for you. So you might also regret for the rest of your life if you don't do it. This is one of these decisions that you might actually regret and always think, what if? So if that was like my situation, I would probably do it, and I think most people who didn't actually regret. Okay. And the last thing. So your intuition is telling you that there must be something more appropriate for you out there, although you don't really know what that's gonna be, but you have that feeling under your skin that there might be something more appropriate for you than what you're doing right now. So who thinks this is a good reason to leave? Okay, and who thinks it's not? Okay, a few people. And who doesn't have an opinion? Okay, so most people think this is a good reason. I actually agree. Like, I think this is a good reason. So I think usually your intuition is really, usually for the most part, it's right. So if you intuitively feel that there must be something like some type of job or some type of environment that where you would perform better, then or you would feel better or feel more accomplished, more satisfied than where you are now, I think usually you're right actually. So and people who trust their intuition usually in the long run they do well on the job market. So if you have that strong feeling, that's probably the right decision to take. Okay. Okay, so so now to the point, right? How to get a good job? Because we as researchers, like especially after a PhD program, we have a lot of positive value. So let's start from a good news. So the good news is, yeah, we are actually capable of a number of things that are not very common on the job market. So most of the employees out there working in private companies don't have those skills that we have. Among which are, first of all, we have the ability to self-manage, right? If you leave a researcher for a week alone, they are super happy because they can finally do their projects, and they will just produce. But if you leave a corporate worker alone without looking at, behind their shoulder, they will be most likely Facebooking for the whole time. So that's also why there are open spaces in corporations, because people are not naturally motivated to work. That's a big problem. So this is gold. I mean, to employers to have someone who is naturally motivated to work and can self-manage is amazing. And most people also, they have an issue finding information and sorting out problems by themselves. Like, I don't know how many of you have stories with Belastingdienst, but basically every time you call Belastingdienst, the only answer you get is, I will pass you through to another department. So I'm always like, why can't you find the answer by yourself, right? So most employees working like big corporations or governments, they would rather prefer to pass a question to someone else rather than trying to find the answer. So this is an asset to have. If you're good at finding information and researching open questions, this is a very good skill to have. Of course, like decomposing big problems into pieces is something we have to learn to do a research project. So how to decompose a problem and then make a roadmap. How will I approach it piece by piece? This is very valuable. And then, of course, approaching problems in an iterative way. Like for many people, this is frustrating. If they have to make iterations to approach a problem, they are super frustrated. But in research, this is the natural way of doing things. Like you have to try different solutions, and every time you're a bit closer to what you expected. And sometimes you never reach the goal, but sometimes you need multiple trials. And actually, when we get through that process, we are getting excited. But most people in the same situation, they get frustrated. So this is actually very valuable. And of course, like we also understand that learning happens for a lifetime, and that you always have to learn new things. And for a lot of people, this is not as obvious. They would rather just do stuff without learning on a daily basis. But we like learning, and this is valuable in every career. We are good at multitasking. That's quite obvious, and also we are indeed like compared to private companies. Academia is much more advanced with topics like what Malvika's talk was about, so inclusivity and including employees, including participants from other cultures. And this is important, especially in large organizations and corporations, that it's important if your employer can be sure that you are good with people and you treat them equally, you're used to work with people from other cultures, irrespective of their culture, and that's an asset, because corporations, the migration of staff is not as high as in academia, so not many people have that international experience. So researchers are much more natural when it comes to work with other cultures, and that's really strong asset. And also, we have to take different roles. So in startup culture, usually there are a few different people who have to make the project work. So there is a hipster, someone who has a novel idea, and there is a hacker, someone who knows how to put this idea to life and can build a product, and there is a hustler who is basically selling the product. And usually these are three different people, but in academia we have to do all these things by ourselves, right? You have to come up with the new concept. You have to program and or do experiment all by yourself, and then you have to present it. There is no one to delegate those tasks to, so you have to really represent a lot of quality in just by yourself. So that's also why researchers are usually good startuppers, good like entrepreneurs, because they can swap between different roles. And we are good with critics, like we are receptive to constructive critics, and that's actually something that is very frustrating to a lot of people working in the private sector. So they cannot take critics, they react with anger, and we don't. So that's really good. That's a really good thing. That's a really good asset to have on the job market. Okay, so now a little bit about. So we have all these qualities. That already makes us very valuable to employers. But for certain reasons, still getting a good job after your PhD is not as easy. And I would like to say a few things about what are the reasons for that. So first of all, researchers unfortunately suffer from a number of stereotypes. So a lot of recruiters, they don't have PhD themselves. They don't know what PhD is, and they might not have an imagination what our skills are, and they might have an outdated view on how, because research also changed a lot, right? So what research, and being an active member of academia is about. So first, such a stereotype is, well, we might have very high expectations, and if we come to ask for a job at their place, that probably means that we currently don't have any better idea, but we will change the job as soon as we can, and we probably have very high financial expectations because we have such a prominent education, and they just look suspiciously especially if you're like the only PhD graduate among 100 people who came to the interview or who applied for a job. Then they're like, well, do we really need a PhD for this job? Because maybe a master graduate is good enough, and maybe they will ask for less salary, and maybe this is not really necessary for us to risk to have such a first league horse on the job market on this particular position, and risk that they will disappear. So this is a stereotype that we have to kind of combat with. And second stereotype is that for a lot of industry recruiters, scientist is almost the same, like it's almost a synonym with specialist. So they don't really trust in our managemental skills. So we, as you can see from this event, like we have a lot of managemental skills, like a wonderfully organized event by Stefan and the crew. But when it comes to applying for managemental positions in corporations, it's often the case that they don't trust that our organizational skills are good enough, or our logistic skills, for some reason. So it's a stereotype, of course, but for the most part, PhDs are automatically classified as a good candidate for a specialist, but not for a manager. And the third thing is, in a lot of private companies, there is again a lot of little deliverables that are like on a weekly or even on a daily basis. Like if you go work in a startup, that is the tech startup, you might have the Scrum practice. So in a Scrum, you have to report progress every day. So the team has a meeting every morning and reports what is the progress. So this is completely, it's just a fast-paced scheme. And a lot of recruiters just are afraid that someone who comes from academia, where you have few deadlines per year, pretty much, might not be able to adapt to such a fast-paced environment. And another issue sometimes is that researchers who apply for industry jobs often have a suboptimal, wrong approach to looking for jobs. So they make mistakes, like very often the same mistakes. How much time do I have? And I would like to mention 3 of them. So one of them is they think, well, I just don't. 15 minutes. They just think, you know, I'm just not happy with what I have here in my current job. I would like to find something else. And I'm generally fed up with academia, and I don't want, I don't want a dysfunctional supervisor. I don't want this, I don't want that. And they come to the recruiter and they're like, yeah, so find me something that I don't have these annoying weekly meetings. I don't have this person to work with. You know, so basically they focus on what they don't want instead of focusing on what they want. So you know how the brain works. Like if you only think about things you don't want, you are quite likely to get them. So it's always better to try to figure out what you're good at and what you want, and only think about those, because otherwise there's very little chance that you will find something that you really enjoy. And second common mistake is that you know, like a lot of researchers, they like thinking, well, I have a good education. I have such a strong CV. I'll be just fine. I don't need to do anything right now. Like I still have projects to finish, and I don't have to worry until the end of my contract. If I need a job, I will just find it. But this is a bit of a mistake in thinking, because the more qualified you are, the more difficult this is to find the right job. Because just imagine you have no qualifications whatsoever, you just want to be a cashier in Albert Heijn, right? You can just walk in any Albert Heijn and just that's just good enough. But if you have very specific skills in a very narrow discipline, and it's like you're a world-class expert in one area, and you also have some social skills, and you also enjoy organizing stuff, and you want to have a job where you can utilize all your talents at the same time. It's not easy to find this place on the market, so it can take you a lot of time, and especially in developed countries like in the Netherlands, the process of looking for jobs can take ages, because it's not a matter of just one conversation. It's a matter of usually a few different interviews, and it can take a long time. Okay. And third thing is this assumption that, well, I have a PhD, I'm very qualified. Yeah.
It's fine. It picks it up.
Do you hear me better now? Yeah, probably. Sorry. Okay, so third thing is, I am assuming that I have a PhD, I have a good education, I'm just qualified for good jobs, right? So this attitude that, well, you deserve it. So if you're a best qualified candidate among all the candidates that came to the job interview, that makes you the best candidate. But employers often think differently, because for them, the best education doesn't necessarily mean the best candidate. So they are trying to find a candidate that is the safest. So they can be sure that this person will fit the position, has qualifications, but also fits the team, fits the company. They value practical experience high, and exactly for this reason, because that makes them believe that you fit the environment. So if you have very high education but no practical experience in industry, that's a bit, for them, that's a punt, that's a risk, because they will have to trust that you will adapt to their environment, and that not necessarily has to happen. So for them, the fact that you have high education but no industry experience is also a kind of a risk. Basically my advice is, don't treat you know, the fact that you will get the job as granted if you have the best education, because that's not necessarily what they are looking for. So quickly, conclusions. First of all, always think in advance about your career move, and take advice from friends, take advice from people who already are in the industry that you know personally, and also ask professionals. And also think about yourself. Think about your own talents, your ambitions, your personality, and think about what you want, and focus only on those things. So try to find features of your work, especially with relation to other people. What kind of role would you like to play with respect to other people? What type of environment you would find the most suitable for yourself, and just focus on the things you want. And that's what we will talk about a little bit. So now I have a question for you. So which one of these aspects of research life do you actually enjoy the most? So like 5 seconds for thinking. Is it, 5 seconds for thinking. Okay, so who actually enjoys active research the most? So doing the actual work. Okay, 1/4. Who actually enjoys people? So conferences, events, 1/4. Okay, who enjoys the reading and writing process? There's like 4 or 5 people. Yes, and who likes the fact that you have personal freedom? You can walk in pajamas to your office. Okay. Okay, so I think like this is the biggest group actually, but we don't have majority in any of these categories. That's nice. That's nice because depending what you actually enjoyed in your job, there are different professions you might consider in the future. And I don't have time here to actually elaborate on each one of them, but there are some multiple professions in which PhDs usually excel. And depending on what you actually enjoyed, whether that was research, that was people, that was the writing process, or the fact that you have a lot of freedom around yourself, you could actually consider different options. But I have to move on now, so I don't have time to really elaborate on each one of them. But yeah, that's. The message is you have a lot of options. You just have to first think about yourself and about the aspects of your current job that you enjoy the most and you feel the strongest about. And now a little exercise. I hope we have time. It's like a few minutes time. Okay. Okay, so just think about 3 best things about your job, things that you enjoy the most, and 3 things that are the most annoying, so you enjoy them the least. You have a few minutes. And actually you could form teams of 2, and because it's better to discuss this also with someone, so few minutes time, and you might discuss it with your neighbor. Okay, guys, we have to continue. So this exercise was for your own self-development. So we will not discuss it in public, but I hope you get some interesting insight from that. And let's just move on, because I still have to tell you a few hopefully useful things. And I only have 10 minutes left, so I hope to leave you with some knowledge at the end. Okay, so I hope that the exercise was useful, and then. So I assume that for most people here, personal freedom is at least to some extent important, right? For me it is, for most of us, I guess, right? So now the question for you is, there's a very important question, and it's a very hard question also. So which of the following factors correlates with the personal freedom at work? And all of them correlate to some extent, but one of them correlates to much higher extent than the others. So this is a hard question, but I'll give you 10 seconds for thinking. Okay, so who thinks it's a stability at work? 1, 2, 3, 3 people. Who thinks it's a salary? No one. Who thinks it's satisfaction from work? Most of you, okay? And who thinks it's opportunities for promotion? No one. Okay, so most of you think it's a satisfaction from work. Again, this is all of these options are to some extent correct, but like I personally think that the highest correlation is with stability at work, actually, and it's a strong negative correlation, and I will show you why. So when you think about where you can go after your PhD, there are a few different environments and types of jobs, types of tribes where you can go. So what we have is working for public sector. These are jobs that are usually for a lifetime if you don't change your mind. And extremely stable, but you have to undergo procedures and extremely monotonous in that way. And then you have academic jobs, but without a career path. So you can also work in academia, but have other job than a research job. You can do corporate job. You can do startup job. You can do consulting. So you can be a consultant for an external company. You can do academic career. You can be a freelancer. And at the end of the spectrum, there is entrepreneurship. So all these choices, and this is a simplification. Because this also depends on the career stage, right? So if you, in academia, let's say, if you get to PI position, then you have a very stable job, right? You are employed till the end of your life, pretty much. But the probability of getting there is low. So that's why academic career is more on the right side of this graph. So again, this is a simplification, but when you think about it, like taking into account the probability of success, this is more or less how the spectrum looks like. So the more personal freedom you want to have, the more you have to give up on stability. And I think this is really important to realize, because this is your choice that you have to make when you want to think about other job outside academia. So that's the first choice that you have to make. Do I have a personality to keep on risking for a lifetime, or do I want stability in my life? Because then you have to give up on some of your personal freedom. And usually you're not made just for one thing. You might be, good for just one side of the spectrum, but you might be adaptive enough to be able to work in a few different environments. So it's not just one option that might fit you. And this is like short description, but I don't have time now to go into the details. But these environments, they have different characteristics. So there are different pros and cons that you have to take into account. So when you think about where to look for these jobs, I will just really go very quickly through those. So first of all, for all of these environments, it's really important to network. It's always easier to find a job when you have a strong personal network and you know someone who knows someone. That's not even a question. And when you think about it, then the smaller the company or the more unstable environment, the more important the networking is. So big organizations like governmental organizations and big corporations, they often accept fresh blood from outside, but the more to the right side of the spectra you get, the more important it is that you have actually personal connection wherever you want to get. So it's also true in academia, right? Like it's much easier to get a job if you know someone in the lab where you are applying to. And there is a reason for it, because the right side of the spectrum is more unstable, so every single employee, if this is a wrong employee, can flop the whole company or the whole lab, well, to some extent. I mean, there are some logic reasons why this is the case, but if you're interested in the right side of the spectrum, networking is even more important for you to get a job than the left side. And then, if you want to work for public sector, corporate job, consulting, academic career, or academic job without a career, then typical job search. So Googling and LinkedIn, they might work for you. And for some jobs, especially in the public sector and in corporations, it's also. But if you want to still do research in those places, it's good to look at which ones of which institutions and companies have strong R&D departments. So it's good to look into statistics and also Scopus database, because then you can find if the company actually does research, that is a peer-reviewed research. So if you want to do research but in industry, this is a good way to check where you can go. If you want to, there are also agencies hiring PhDs, and that's again, like, I'm not sure if I have enough time to really explain how it works, but in brief, these agencies, they basically hire you and then rent you out to companies. So you're an employee of the agency, but you can go on to multiple projects into multiple companies. So it's a bit of an umbrella organization that is employing you and then lending you to companies. So it's an interesting model. It guarantees you employment, and you can also try yourselves with different employers in the process. There are some agencies like this in the Netherlands. I mentioned 2 of them here. That's quite interesting. And of course, if you're more interested into startup jobs or freelancing or entrepreneurship, networking through meetups and conferences and hackathons is usually the best way. And when you go there, you should be really prepared for elevator pitch. So to be able to introduce yourself in like 60 or 90 seconds and have your business card at hand, because the dynamics of these meetups is quite high. So you try to meet as many people as possible, and you have to be brave in introducing yourself. And you can find a job easily on those meetups. And one thing that is really crucial, like, you have to remember that people still live in tribes. So these different environments, they have completely different tribal behaviors, and you have to be aware of that, because you have to find a place that you fit, like with your personality, with your way of living. And I just briefly examples. So yeah, in these corporate and governmental jobs, it's usually, you don't have it in your contract, but you're expected to have lunch with everyone. This is very simple, but in some other jobs this is not the case. But you're expected to be on open day. You're expected to participate, show your involvement in all these tribal celebrations. In startups, you can easily recognize a startup person, because they always say everything starting a sentence with we do this, our product, our vision, right? They are like a fist, the whole team is like one body, and they always, they think of themselves as part of the team. Whoops. I think sorry. In consulting, it's much more individualistic, because you basically represent not only your company but also yourself, and you have to prove to be at least the same good consultant as other consultants in the company to have good salary, etc. So it's much more individualistic, and you have to be able to show off and build your personal brand. In academic career, for instance, we have these conferences, and I sometimes try to describe to my friends doing in entrepreneurship how academic life looks like, and I tell them, so we go to these conferences and then we dance together on a dance floor, and they're like, dance everyone with everyone? I'm like, yeah. So it's like dancing like on a wedding? Yeah. Like, so you do it like for a living, like this is part of your job? Yes. And then they're very surprised that that's what we do at conferences, but this is a part of our academic culture. You go to these events and you enjoy together with everyone. So it's something that we have and we treat as something natural, and this is not what you can encounter in some other environments. And in freelancing, a lot of freelancers travel together, and they have this is like the affinity to traveling is quite common there. And entrepreneurs, like often, like they are good storytellers. I mean, you can recognize easily that they are very good at salesmanship and telling stories. And a lot of business deals are actually done by a glass of whiskey. So if you're a good drinker, you might do well as a startup with your own company, because that's from my experience. That's a lot of business deals happen late at night after 5 glasses of whiskey. That this is, I mean, these are just examples. I mean, there are a lot of different tribal behaviors, but I just want to make you know that the recruiters, when they recruit you for a job, they not only want to find what your hard skills are, but they actually want to know if you fit their tribe. So if you have the same lifestyle and the same personality that they are looking for. So sometimes if you get rejected for a job, it's not because you are not the best qualified candidate, but because they just met someone else who might potentially be better fit for their tribe. That's the only reason. Okay, yeah. So maybe, I don't have any more time. So this is just very general advice that I want to give you. Like, keep your LinkedIn page updated, and keep your friends from outside academia. And also, it's good to enjoy what you have right now, because academic job has a lot of positives that we take for granted. And also, when your contract expires, also remember to keep a steady lifestyle. So work, organize yourself an office and keep regular working hours when you're looking for a new contract. So don't binge watch Netflix 15 hours a day. Just try to keep the same lifestyle you had before, because that's really important for mental health. Okay. And researcher is someone who is doing research. You can do research in many different ways, not necessarily in academia. And one detail, I just wrote a book about this topic. So if you would like to find out more information about how to look for jobs outside academia, then this is the link. We also I also lead a foundation which offers free career advice. If you have any bottleneck you struggle with, you would like to ask, you can always ask us questions. You will get some really nice professional advice, and I'm happy that Stefan is also involved. So that's a quality stamp, I think. And I also have a company that is organizing very intense career trainings. And if you would like to hear about what we do, I'm here, and I can tell you more about this in the coffee break. And I'm happy to for any questions. I will be here till the end of the day. So if you have any personal questions you would like to get advice, I'm very happy to answer all the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalia.